we have been witnessing for weeks, and certainly just in the last 24 hours, atrocities of unimaginable proportion. We will do everything together, in partnership, in solidarity, to support what is necessary at this very moment in terms of the humanitarian and security needs of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. I want to be very clear. The United States and Poland are united in what we have done and are prepared to do to help Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. Full stop.
We have to impose more sanctions on Russia. We cannot accept such military activities which bear the characteristics of the features of a genocide, because I don't think that anybody is in any doubt. If hospitals are bombed where pregnant women are staying, where children are staying, when ordinary people are killed, where bombs are dropped, when missiles are launched into residential houses, where there are no military installations, then this is an act of barbarity, bearing the features of a genocide.
We do not plan to attack other countries, and we did not attack Ukraine. We have explained this many times. A situation developed in Ukraine which poses a direct threat to the security of the Russian Federation. And despite many years of reminding, persuading, and proposing, we were never listened to. In regards to arms supplies to Ukraine from abroad, yes, we do see how dangerous the conduct of our Western colleagues is, including the European Union, who have violated their own principles and values while delivering lethal weapons to Ukraine, including thousands of shoulder-held defense systems that are portable and can be used anywhere and used by terrorists to pose a threat to civilians and aviation.
Putin believed that he was going to conquer Ukraine. He failed. He believed that he was going to divide us. He failed. He believed that he was going to weaken the transatlantic relationship, and he failed. Now he has to stop it. We will be much safer, have to spend less gas, to use less gas. The climate requires that. For once, geopolitical and climate goes together.
This is a defining moment for Europe, and it is a moment where we see that Putin's war is also a question of the resilience of democracies.
La guerre en Ukraine.
The war in Ukraine is a trauma immense, and I said it's a tragedy, a human, political, humanitarian tragedy, but it's also an element that would lead to completely redefining the architecture of our Europe.
The Poles and some other Eastern European countries that we've heard of have indicated a willingness to provide that air power. We've heard from President Zelensky and the Ukrainians that they would like that air power. It's not clear why we are standing in the way.
It's a win for Ukraine because it's what they want and need, and it's a win for Poland because over time it would upgrade their defense capabilities. And yet the administration is blocking it. It makes no sense. The administration just told us that they think Ukraine needs other things more and would be more effective in the battlefield. Well, in theory, that means that you have the United States government deciding what the military strategy is for Ukraine, because Ukraine wants the planes. They've made a decision. Second, we have heard that the administration thinks that's provocative. Well, more efficient and effective weapons would be even more provocative, and yet they want to provide those. So the logic doesn't make any sense. We need to provide these planes and provide them now.
It repeatedly seems like the administration's first instinct is to flinch, wait for international and public pressure to overwhelm them, and then take action only after the most opportune moment has literally passed us by. The President and his team initially take a pass on strong steps, and they could have been put in place proactively and had a real deterrent effect. But then, after sustained public pressure, they buckle and implement the steps anyway, often too late. This leading from behind leaves us in a lose-lose scenario. And the pattern has played out yet again with this bizarre argument over MiG airplanes that President Biden's team have carried out in public with our Polish allies. The mere fact that the Biden administration officials are contradicting not only each other, but also our NATO allies in public, evidences a severe lack of coordination and proactive leadership that we should be, us, Americans, should be providing. Strength is not a provocation. The world needs President Biden and his team to be leading, taking the initiative, and shaping circumstances calmly, soberly, but with confidence and decisiveness. They seem instead to be trapped in a cycle of passivity, indecision, self-deterrence, and then finally, reaction. The world needs the Biden administration to be flying this plane. Too often it feels like the plane is flying them.
Inflation is really killing us. And what does the president say? What does President Biden say? He says he can't do much. He can't do much to address, especially rising gas prices. That's unacceptable.
So I think there's a lot more we can do. I really do. We have to get back to the leasing process so people have stability. They understand that we're going to be in this game for a while. We can walk and chew gum. That means you can basically provide the energy that the country needs, keep the country strong, have the energy that we need to defend ourselves, to keep ourselves strong, to keep our people basically with a strong economy, but be able to defend our allies. And right now we're not able to do that, and we can. We have to do more of it.
Ma'am, thank you. I wanted to follow up on your tweet yesterday about being on the lookout for Russia to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine and possibly creating false flag operations to use them. What is the evidence to back that up beyond what you said in the tweet that it's a pattern from Russia? Is there more to this than it just being a pattern for them?
Well, they have a large biological and chemical weapons program. So it's a pattern, but they also have the capacity. Well, I'm not going to get into specific intelligence. We look at all of those factors. And we also know, and one of the main issue that prompted my Twitter thread yesterday was that Russia has a history also of inventing outright lies like this, which is the suggestion that the United States has a chemical and biological weapons program, or Ukraine does, that they're operating. Russia is the country that has a chemical and biological weapons program. So the objective was to make clear the inaccuracy of the information, the misinformation they're trying to put out, and make clear to the world that they not only have the capacity, they have a history of using chemical and biological weapons, and that in this moment we should have our eyes open for that possibility.
Would use of chemical or biological weapons be a red line for the president in terms of direct U.S. involvement in the war over there?
We are directly involved. We are providing $1 billion in security assistance. We are the largest provider of that. We are providing humanitarian. With the U.S. military going and engaging in Ukraine and fighting a war against Russia, we don't have any intention to do that.
I just want to be totally clear. Are you saying if Russia does conduct a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine, there will not be a military response from the United States?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. What we're saying right now is they have the capacity and the capabilities. I'm also not going to get into intelligence. But the president's intention of sending U.S. military to fight in Ukraine against Russia has not changed.
But that sounds like even if there is a chemical weapons attack, that calculus will not change. So I just want to be clear on what the U.S. response would be.
Again, there has not been a chemical weapons attack. We are conveying to all of you what the capacity and the capabilities of Russia are, what steps they have taken in the past. Let's hope we are not having a discussion about that, but the president and our NATO partners have not changed their assessment about their plans to send U.S. troops in.
Would President Biden let a chemical weapons attack in Ukraine go unanswered by the United States?
We have not let anything go unanswered that President Putin has done to date. We have not let anything go unanswered to date, any steps that President Putin has taken to date. What that would look like, I can't give you an assessment of that from here.
Can you just talk a little bit about the fate of the COVID money, the $15 billion that Speaker Pelosi took out of the bill yesterday? I mean, how confident is the White House that you will ultimately get that money?
Absolutely. Okay. I just wanted to let you continue. Well, we need this money. So without additional resources from Congress, the results are dire. Just to give you some specifics, in March, testing capacity will decline this month. In April, free testing and treatments for tens of millions of Americans without health insurance will end. In May, America's supply of monoclonal antibodies will run out. So failing to take action now will have severe consequences for the American people. That's why we requested $22.5 billion to avoid severe disruptions to our COVID response. The reason we've made the progress we have at this point is because we have been ahead of where the pandemic is in terms of having the preparations, for the most part, of vaccines, of supplies needed, and we want to continue to stay ahead of that if we can. So these are conversations, as you all know and has been reported out, that are happening with members, but we will need that funding in order to continue to fight the pandemic.
We have been under tremendous pressure on the part of the public opinion, also here in the United States, on the part of some of our allies, to deliver these airplanes to Ukraine. We announced our willingness and our readiness to transfer these aircraft to the NATO airbase in Germany. The proposal has been rejected by our American partners, who have come to the conclusion that it would be too escalatory and too risky. And actually, this is what we were saying from the beginning of the debate about the Soviet-made fighter jets at our disposal. So I believe that we can now move on, keep coordinating our joint efforts in order to help the Ukrainians defend themselves, again, without engaging in a military clash with Russia, because this is what NATO definitely doesn't need. I think that if we want to retaliate for that invasion against Ukraine with punitive measures and by crippling the Russian economy, we have to be determined and ready to uphold these sanctions in a longer term. Maybe they should last for a decade, maybe 15 years, because I'm afraid we are going to live with Mr. Putin for many years to come. Even if we witness a chemical attack, for example, that you have just mentioned, I do believe and I'm confident that Mr. Putin and his cronies and all his closest aides will end up in the dock in The Hague, in the International Criminal Court, because this is what he has already fully deserved.
The Ukrainian people have made clear that they won't stand for it. Putin can take a town, he can capture a city, but it is already clear that he will fail in his effort to take the country of Ukraine and its people. We absolutely, Matt, are supportive of efforts to document and to investigate reports of potential war crimes in Ukraine. The fact is that we've seen very credible reports of deliberate attacks on civilians, which would, under the Geneva Conventions, constitute a war crime.